Hi, I'm James Nelson, Vice Chairman at Cushman & Wakefield, and I'm here to bring you the Nelson Report's February 2016 podcast. In my last blog posting, I talked about the untapped potential of New York City co-ops. Now, there are a lot of ways for co-ops to monetize untapped value, ranging from air rights sales to creating retail components to even selling in their entirety. So I wanted to look at what is the stock of New York City co-ops. And so I asked Charlie Oshman, founder and VP over at Reonomy, to run a study. And what he came up with is that there are 7,074 co-ops in New York City. And of these, about 2,966 of them have available air rights. Now, of course, it's not entirely exact because some of these co-ops may have already sold their air rights. But just looking at those potential residential rights, we're talking about over 68 million square feet, which could potentially be added. So this is a huge opportunity for many of these co-ops which were created decades ago with very low reserves, so this could be a boon for them to increase their reserves or maybe even have a maintenance holiday for shareholders if there was a possibility to sell their air rights. Now, in one case, was working with a co-op in the West Village. This was a low-rise, two-story co-op. And what we found was that you could actually double the amount of square footage which could be built there. So if these individual shareholders just sold their units, they could probably get about close to $2 million of value. Whereas if they were to sell collectively, they could receive almost double it, because at that point they're really tapping into that development potential where someone could go in and build condos or a single family. So that's just one example. Ultimately, we were not able to finalize a sale there because there was not a supermajority. Generally, about 75% of shareholders would have to be on board for this type of sale. But in another case, we represented a co-op in Soho, and here, unfortunately, their building had to be demolished because while a next-door neighbor was building, the structural integrity was compromised. So here were shareholders who wanted to live, use their apartments, and suddenly they were forced in the situation where they looked to sell as a group. So we were successful in finding a developer to purchase and rebuild, in this case, condos. One of the challenges there was looking at what the value contributions were, because the original shares allocated didn't really accurately reflect the value today. In this case, there was a very valuable retail component which was not as pronounced when they first pulled this together. In one final example, working with a small co-op right now, and it really appears that the highest and best value for this property is for a conversion to a single family. Because when you're selling co-ops, you're only selling interior square footage, but when you're selling to a single family conversion, you're getting the value of the entire property. Not to mention, in some cases, the most expensive townhouses in the city, even for a shell, will go for $2,000 a foot, and once complete, $3,000, $4,000. So whereas the co-op average in the city last year was about $950, according to Douglas Elliman's fourth quarter report. Now, there's other reasons why co-ops are less valuable than condos. Certainly the flexibility of ownership, the lack of restrictions. But when you look at the averages, and for the last quarter, the average condo price was about $1,950 a foot. So this $1,000 a foot premium just wasn't because of more lax rules, but really because the bulk of condos are, of course, new construction. So there's clearly a case to be made here where if a co-op has outdated product, there's air rights which can be utilized, or this could be converted to a condo. It's definitely something to look into, but you definitely need to speak to good counsel and an accountant initially. And when I was first discussing this idea with Doug Heller, who works in co-ops and condos over at Herrick Feinstein, he said the way you structure these transactions are very important, because in the case, for example, for this co-op on Grand Street, we sold the shares of the corporation. But in some situations, co-ops might elect to actually dissolve the corporation. But then there might be a double layer of taxation, and it does get complicated, definitely beyond my pay grade. So again, there's a lot of potential out there which co-ops should look into, but certainly need to seek out the help of professionals first. So that's it for this month, and I look forward to being in touch soon.